Hello everybody, Hamster Sales here with another Diablo 3 skills calculator video. This time I'm doing the monk. This is my third video. As you can see, I'm kind of going through all the characters, coming up with a build for each one. This calculator is so fun to play with. Probably the next funnest thing to actually having the beta and being able to create a gameplay video. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that either myself or my wife will get into the Diablo 3 beta so I can produce some very fun gameplay videos, but for the time being I'm still having fun with this skill calculator. Today with the monk I decided to come up with a support build. The monk has a ton of supporting abilities, more so than the other classes that I've played with so far, the demon hunter and the barbarian. And his resource mechanic I of course should talk about. It is all about spirit with him. So he has spirit generators and spirit spenders. It's very similar to the barbarian's fury generation, except I don't think I mentioned in my first barbarian video either. The barbarian actually gains fury by getting hit by enemies, much like Rage in World of Warcraft and similar MMOs. But the monk actually gets to keep all the spirit that he generates. It doesn't go down over time like the barbarians does, and the warriors did in World of Warcraft. So any spirit you generate is free to use whenever you have a chance to, and it seems like you can gain it quite quickly. So that's something I definitely kept in mind when I came up with this build. I have a couple of powerful spirit generating abilities, and one of the runes I focused on spirit generation. But let's start off with Crippling Wave here. It's my first spirit generating ability. It's a good AoE melee attack, it seems like. Does good damage and slows all enemies in front of the monk when he strikes them by 50%. So it seems like a strong support ability, can help you kite powerful melee foes for yourself and for your allies. And AoE melee attacks are good because every time you hit a monster it goes into kind of a flinch animation in Diablo 3 just like they did in Diablo 2. So you're keeping enemies off yourself, off of your allies, by giving them that AoE little smack to the face. And you're also slowing them down, so if anything's really mean you can run away from it, gather yourself, find a better position. And the rune I chose for it is kind of a debuff to all the mobs that you hit with it. They take a 80% additional damage from all attacks for 9 seconds. Seemed extremely powerful, and very much in keeping with the support build I wanted to make. All your allies that might be a little more DPS focused are going to be doing tons more damage to anybody you hit with Crippling Wave for 9 seconds. So that seemed extremely powerful. Some of the other ones a little bit more offensive minded. This one I considered getting to increase my spirit generation, although I don't know how much I'd be focusing on critical strike rating with this type of a build, so it didn't seem that good. This one seems pretty powerful as far as pure AoE damage, but that's not exactly what I'm going for. And then this was the other real contender for my support build here. Enemies hit by Crippling Wave do half the damage for 9 seconds. I do actually have another ability that I chose to help me reduce damage done by my enemies. Or at least I think I went with something. But instead I decided for this part of my support build I really wanted to help with the offense even though I wasn't directly doing the damage. I feel like any of my party members will be doing significantly increased damage with this type of a rune, so that's what I went with, keeping with the support build. And then the next skill I chose was Sweeping Wind. This is going to be my big time spirit generator. Normally it just generates 6 spirit per attack, and it creates kind of a little swirling vortex around you that does a bunch of weapon damage. It can stack 3 times, as you can see there. And yeah, it kind of keeps with the Crippling Wave deal where I'm doing an AoE kind of a melee attack. I'm going to be causing mobs to flinch all over the place. They get hit every second, so it's probably going to prevent a lot of attacks that way, in addition to doing some pretty good damage to them. And the spirit generating I decided to get primarily from my rune. As long as I'm at the maximum stack count, as long as I have 3 stacks of this ability, I'm going to be getting 2.4 spirit per second. So it's a melee attack on no cooldown, so I should be able to keep that maximum vortex count up and generate a ton of spirit so that I can use some of my spirit consuming abilities here. And we'll move right on to that with Breath of Heaven. This is the full-on healing spell that the monk has. You just heal yourself and all your allies nearby, relatively nearby, for what looks like a large life total. I have no idea how big that's going to be. But yeah, this is the only healing spell I chose, but it's going to be a big part of what I do, healing myself and my allies while I play, or at least what I would intend to do with this type of build. And I just chose the pure healing increase rune, since this is going to be all the source of my healing. A couple of the other skills had some interesting healing options, primarily self-healing, but since this is the AoE heal spell, I figured I just wanted to do more AoE heal. There's some really interesting choices in here. You can make it do damage at the same time with a lot of these runes. This one causes it to do holy damage to the enemies as well. This one seemed pretty cool, gaining 1 additional spear from each combo attack for 33 seconds after using Breath of Heaven. I didn't really want to, I don't know, it didn't seem as appealing. Doing double the healing, probably by far the best one. This one at the bottom, Blazing Wrath, the Obsidian rune is almost always an interesting choice. Increases all damage done by 20% for 33 seconds. But I actually have some better damage boosters already, and Crippling Wave, I mean, already does a way better job of that. So yeah, I'm just went with the pretty boring one there, but double the healing, always very good. Then we have Serenity. This ability is on a fairly long cooldown. It's on 60-second cooldown, but it gives you kind of a Paladin shield, an invulnerability shield for 3 seconds, and prevents all mind control and charm effects on you, which seems incredibly powerful, especially if a lot of monsters end up being able to do that. That's going to be a really good oh shit button. And the rune I got extends that this protection to all my allies. This was really a no-brainer. There's a self-heal on this one. This one causes offensive damage with the cooldown. But really I'm trying to save myself, trying to save my allies with this ability. So I went with the Tranquility rune here that extends that same protection to my allies. Yeah, that's why I chose that one. And then I have kind of an offensive-minded Spirit Spender here. The 7-sided strike where you teleport around and smack up a bunch of enemies, doing what seems like pretty strong damage. I didn't augment it to do offensive damage though, more offensive damage. I went with the Obsidian rune here, where I get 55% chance to charm or stun the enemies I'm hitting for 3 seconds. So this is kind of a crowd control ability. If you have a pretty menacing pack of monsters, you just kind of 7-sided strike into them. You're expecting to stun or charm over half of them when you hit, so you're going to be taking a lot of enemies out of battle, doing some decent damage. And it's a pretty evasive ability, so I should be able to do it without staying in the thick of things for too long. I'll probably have a sweeping wind generated while I do this strike, so my vortexes will be hitting stuff. It seemed like a pretty complementary skill, and if I really needed to help with the offense a little bit, I have this at my disposal. And then the last ability I chose was a mantra. You have one of 4 mantras to choose from. You can only have 1 active at any given time, so most monks are only going to be picking 1 mantra for one of their 6 active skills, I imagine, most of the time in their builds. The one I chose was Mantra of Conviction. All enemies constantly take an additional 20% damage while you have the mantra active. Yeah, it seemed very good, and definitely keeps in line with the support build. The rune I chose was Intimidation. Enemies affected by the mantra inflict 45% less damage, so they're doing nearly half the damage they would otherwise once they're anywhere near me. Seems like another extremely powerful support skill. There's a lot of stuff that can augment your own personal attack power, but that's not what we're trying to do with this build. This one seemed pretty cool. You and your allies get a chance to be healed for what seems like a decent amount when striking an enemy affected by this, but I already have my giant heal spell, so I decided to just kind of debuff all the mobs constantly, which seemed extremely powerful. And then now we move on to the passive skills. These first 2 seem like by far the most powerful of all these skills. I'm not going to run down all of them, but in looking over all of the monk's passives, these first two seem by far the most powerful, especially for this type of build. This is essentially an Ankh for the Shaman from World of Warcraft, if you're familiar with that. But instead of dying, you're just brought back to life with about 1/3 of your health. The Ankh from World of Warcraft was an activated ability. You actually had to choose to do it, but this will just bring you right back to life every minute and a half. So as long as you're not dying multiple times within a minute and a half, you're nearly invincible, especially with all the strong self-healing abilities I have. So this by far seems the most powerful passive ability. There will of course be situations where you're just completely surrounded by monsters. Everything's kind of gone to shit and you'll probably die rapidly in succession, but it looks like most of the time this is just going to keep you alive at all times, especially with these strong survivability skills that I've chosen. Next one I've got here is Guiding Light, that whenever I heal somebody, I get a damage buff. My ally gets a damage buff. 16% seemed pretty significant for 10 seconds, especially with all the healing I planned to be doing, so seemed like another no-brainer. The rest of them were relatively marginal passive increases. One I chose gave me 10% chance to dodge while dual wielding. and 20% spirit generation while wielding a staff. Since you're always going to be either dual wielding fist weapons or carrying a staff, as I imagine with the monk, always going to be getting one of those pretty sick bonuses. So I decided why not go with that one. And there you have it. That's my support build for the monk. Please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Please rate and subscribe if you liked it. And thanks so much for listening.